Welcome in. It's yet another NFL season preview here on Sports by the Book. I'm Jeff Parles. She's Alex White. And as you can see from behind us, we make our way to the Pacific Northwest, the Seattle Seahawks. It's a new era at quarterback.
Yes, it
with
is.
Sam Darnold taking over the reins as Geno Smith ends up in Vegas. Darnold comes over from Minnesota after a giant year with the Vikings a year ago.
A lot of changes in Seattle, right? We're used to the big names, and at first it was Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, and then it was Geno Smith's team with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and now those three are all gone. So it's a new roster here in Seattle with a division that is quite wide open, if you ask me.
Yeah, on top of being wide open, it is a stronger division in the NFC side. See the Seahawks coming with the lowest win total at 7.5, but heavily juiced to the over. So an 8-9 win season projected based off that juice. Arizona win ahead of them. They're also laying a price at the over, which is interesting. And then the Rams at 10 and minus 120, even though they're the betting favorite in the division, and the Niners at 10.5. These Seahawks are plus 175. Remember, Seahawks won 10 games a year ago, just wasn't enough to make the postseason. And they made pretty significant changes based off that, back-to-back years of no postseason. Plus 175 to make it in Seattle, plus 550 to win the division, 30-1 to win the NFC, and then 75 to raise the Lombardi for the second time up in the Pacific Northwest for the Seahawks.
I would say very risky, right, for Mike Macdonald's second year now as the head coach there to get 10 wins in the first year and then to not sign Geno Smith and trade him to Las Vegas and take a chance here with Sam Darnold. Risky. We'll see if it pays off for them, right, trying to really make his name here in Seattle. I will say, looking at the divisions and those odds right there, I don't know what the books numbers are off the top of my head, but this is my closest, most compact division as to power ratings, where it's really just about a 5.5 point difference from the top to the bottom. So that is why I say it can be wide open. I think a lot of that has to do with their schedule. So they will be playing both South, the NFC and the AFC South, which we both know are two of the easier divisions. So a lot of coin flip games for the Seahawks. I don't have them favored necessarily, but a lot of pick 'em looking at their season as a whole.
Well, that's the advantage for this whole division, and we can look at Seattle's schedule right here. Again, you mentioned it, the two Souths for the NFC West, which then gives you an advantage that, again, in an NFC where the NFC North looks unbelievably strong, and they're going to probably beat up on each other all year long. The NFC East, yeah, Washington behind Philadelphia, of course, in the NFC title game a year ago, but didn't improve as much as someone like Dallas with the lowest expectations they've had in a long time. And we pencil in the NFC South champion as the only team from that division until proven otherwise. So there is an avenue for all four of these NFC West teams to make the playoffs. And you look at that Seattle schedule, you really got to avoid the calamity early. You got to avoid a 1-4 start where you host San Francisco. That's a huge game right out of the chute. A Niner team that's coming out their second worst season with Shanahan, a Niner team that looks very different. We're not even sure Brandon Ayuk will be ready for week 1 or even at some point in the first month of the season based off what Kyle Shanahan said. McCaffrey's health is now up at the forefront after last year. Then you go to Pittsburgh. The DK Metcalf reunion comes right away in week 2. They're going to be big favorites at home against New Orleans week 3, but then a tough short week against Arizona and a good Tampa Bay team to follow that up. Alex, it is critical, especially in a schedule with so many flippish games, to not go out 1-4, which even with New Orleans at home mixed in there, that might be their toughest 5-game stretch of the entire season going into this year, Alex.
I would say it definitely is, and I could see them starting 1-4. The good thing is McDonald in his first year made some adjustments, especially defensively, and they won 6 of their last 8. So you could definitely see a path where they can rack up some wins from the middle to the end of the season. But I mean, that you're right. Those first 5 games are going to be very tough. And there's some question marks still. And we saw it last year too, their offensive line. Did they make enough improvement there? I don't know. Will they take a step forward? That's probably the biggest concern for me. I am buying this defense. I do like this defense. I like what I saw from them last year. I think they have a great secondary, and I think they can take an even bigger step forward.
I'll just say this with Seattle's roster. Let's just go through there because obviously the big move is Darnold moves over from Minnesota to Seattle. If we're just looking at straight personnel, other than lacking the top 3 wide receiver in Justin Jefferson, the roster construction's relatively similar, right? I would argue that Seattle is stronger at running back than Minnesota was a year ago going in, even though it turned out that Minnesota's backs, led by Aaron Jones, were pretty darn good. But a backfield of Walker, Charbonnet, and McIntosh on paper seems better than what Minnesota had going in. Wide receivers, other than at the top, are pretty even of where they are. Depends on what you're getting out of Cooper Kupp.
Yep.
JSN, I believe, is ready to be a number 1 wide receiver in this league. And Marquez Valdez-Scantling has had a really, again, up and down career, but was effective catching long balls last year in New Orleans. By the way, Clint Kubiak's the new offensive coordinator. He was in New Orleans a year ago, remember, orchestrated that hot start, and then obviously the wheels came off once Derek Carr got injured. But, Alex, the whole ball wax comes down to the offensive line again in Seattle. And we mentioned this on our Raider preview. Geno Smith covered up a lot of the flaws with that offensive line, a bottom-tier offensive line. And even now with two first-round picks on the left side, where Cross is now in year 4, and Gray Zabel, who they picked in the first round of North Dakota State, a little bit of a surprise first-round pick, but they picked him because he's versatile. He can play anywhere in the middle on that O-line, but it's going to come down to that, what this O-line is. Again, there's still not a lot of there's no high-end talent on the right side. Just a bunch of mid-round picks who have not really proven themselves to be high-end linemen. That's where the concern comes for me with the Seattle team. Darnold, who melted last year under intense pressure at the end of the year, with a not as good as offensive mind calling his plays, it's a little bit dicey with a mediocre offensive line still.
Ooh, and a lot of pressure on them because you're right, Clint Kubiak comes over, and that is because McDonald wants them to run the ball more, right? And we know that you need the offensive line there so they can do that. Kenneth Walker, a little bit of a question mark, did miss at least 6 games last year with an injury, hoping that he is 100% going into the year. But I do agree. I do like their running back room a lot. But yeah, I think he made a good point. I think personnel is relatively close. We'll see what that offensive line can do. And if Sam Darnold is the Sam Darnold that we saw last year with Minnesota. But looking schedule-wise, again, just to your point, a lot of pick'em games, tough early. I would not touch this win total. This is probably the most stay-away win total that I have ever seen because I think that they have a wide range.
It's not a collapsed range, that's for sure. And you look at the defense, too. On top of it, there's questions on defense. Again, we know McDonald is a high-end defensive mind. Defensive coordinator is his own guy, Aiden Dern, who is again, McDonald's right-hand man to begin with. I'll just say this. One of these guys, either on the D-line or the pass rush, are going to have to have a huge year here, whether it's Leonard Williams, whether it's DeMarcus Lawrence, who comes over from Dallas, of course, battling injuries over the last few years. Nwosu comes over to be a tackling machine from the Chargers. You would hope that Witherspoon was amazing as a rookie 2 years ago. Still a good year a year ago, but not quite as good as he was. Same with Rick Wallen, who feels like he peaked in his rookie year. Again, I have a lot of questions about this defense, and again for Seattle, where you see the Seahawks right now with a division that is very much up for grabs here, and a division that, again, like you said, a schedule that is not a collapsed range. It is a wide range of what they could do here.
I do think Witherspoon and Wallen, I do think that is their strength, their secondary. So I do think that there are some question marks with the interior I think the defensive line is good. It is that middle section that I am a little bit worried about with the pass rushing. So we'll see. No strong bets for me when it comes to Seattle this year. Like I said, I could make a case for them winning the division at plus 550, been with just the shortest gap from the top to the bottom, with San Francisco having such a down year last year. The Rams, they do have a very high ceiling, still have Matthew Stafford. Feels like they're kind of pushing their chips all in to go for it one more time with him, but it's kind of wide open still with this division and those 4 teams. And I would even bring up Arizona with Kyler Murray, everybody thinking he's going to take another step forward.
Now, it'll be interesting to see when we get to the Arizona preview. The Cardinals seem to be the team that a lot of sharps like going into this year. Murray stepped forward another year with Gannon's coaching staff there as well. But boy, we're just looking at this whole division. And for Seattle, if you're going off a straight roster, their roster's fourth. It's right that they have the lowest win total. You also can make a very good case for Sam Darnold being the worst quarterback in this division by margin. Now, of course, last year up until the Week 18 game against Detroit and the playoff game against the Rams, it was a magical season for Darnold. It was the best year of his career. He was incredible for the most part. And then, look, Sam Darnold, the clock struck midnight. He reverted back to what we have seen for the bulk of his career. A guy who did not handle pressure particularly well. A guy who's, when the clock moves quicker, the decision-making is not good.
Right.
We just saw that, and that scares me moving forward with an offensive line that is that bad. Now, I'm not going to bet the win total. I'd lean to the under at 7.5, but because, as we mentioned, you play the AFC South, there's a shot that they're favored in 3 of those 4 games, maybe even all 4, since the Texan game is at home this year. They play the NFC South. There'll be a dog at home against Tampa more likely than not, but they'll be a big favorite against New Orleans. We don't know what Atlanta's going to be by week 14, so it's a fool's errand to guess what that line is going to be at this point. And Carolina, look, I don't know what Carolina is going to be in week 17. We obviously had our Panthers preview already, but we thought the range was pretty significant on them. At least I thought the range was significant on them because they play in a weak division, even if their roster isn't particularly great. So there are a lot of games, even the Minnesota game at home, they'll have a shot to be favored in. Again, Matthew Stafford gets hurt, and Stafford's already battling it, apparently, according to Sean McVay in training camp. Then this whole division changes. Yes. So I look, lean to the under 7.5. This also might be one of those where if they get out to a good start, then we bet the in-season win total under. That would be the other one I would look at as well. If they get out 3-2 in what is a pretty reasonable stretch against 4 out of 5 teams that I think will all be in playoff contention, it's probably an under at that point if they get off to a good start.
Or the other way around,
Sure.
if they start 1-4 and the Saints and the Panthers and some of those South teams are as bad as we think, and we think they're going to rack up some wins later on, and we're getting a better number than 6.5, it might be a good time to go over. You might even be able to get a great middle at some point with them. But what about Mike McDonald, Coach of the Year, 20-1? Does that intrigue you at all?
It doesn't interest me. It just, it's weird because you have a 7.5 win total. Again, it kind of fits the mold. They exceed expectations and make the playoffs, or if they win the division, he would probably be live in that circumstance. But I just keep going back to everything I've said on Coach of the Year. Unless if I'm proven otherwise, those 2 favorites are going to be insanely hard to beat if one of those 2 makes the playoffs. That's, of course, Ben Johnson in Chicago, Mike Vrabel in New England. One of those 2 teams makes the playoffs, they're going to win. It feels like everyone is set up for that. Now, the interesting thing is Seattle's expectations, because everyone is out of whack on New England. We'll get to the Patriot preview as well. Most people are out of whack on New England's expectations. So, like, if New England pops in 11-6 somehow, which I think that would be that would almost be as good as Vrabel getting to the AFC title game with Ryan Tannehill in the way of accomplishments. But I don't know. I don't see. I'd rather have Sean Payton, because what if Denver wins the AFC West? I'd rather have Canales because they're in a horrible division. I'd rather have Pete Carroll in Vegas than Mike McDonald in that Coach of the Year market. So I would steer clear. I wish I was getting, if 30-35 to 1, all right, then we can talk about it. 20-1, not so much.
I don't know. I mean, I'm a little intrigued because, he did have 10 wins in his first year. So if he can do that again here with a different quarterback and even potentially win this division, I think he's definitely live. But I do like how you're saying if the other 2 get their teams to the playoffs, Seattle right there as well.
Yeah, I think it's a really hard task for anyone to beat Ben Johnson or Mike Vrabel of either New England or Chicago make the postseason. If they both make the postseason, then good luck on trying to decipher it. I think that would have to be Johnson, but that's a different argument for a different time. Cooper Kupp, I just want to bring up real quick because Kupp has dealt with a whole cavalcade of injuries over the last few years. I don't know if that's the correct replacement for DK Metcalf. I know they didn't want to pay Metcalf a long-term contract. I get it. But boy, it's a lot to ask a Kupp who is 40-1 in that comeback player of the year market. Again, it could be hard for anyone to beat Hutchinson or Prescott, assuming they play at the level they did before their injuries. But again, that is my biggest concern with this roster of, all right, JSN, it can be a number 1, but if Kupp gets hurt, you're then with MVS, Jake Bobo's a good number 4, but he's not a number 2. And then 2 rookies, and Torrey Hunter, and then Ricky White, who we saw at UNLV the last few years, who was drafted late, more a special teamer in the NFL level than a wide receiver, more likely than not.
Well, I mean, if he can stay healthy, then that is intriguing too, with him getting comeback player of the year. Because it's been a couple of years now where we have seen him play a full season.
Sure.
So,
all right. That's what we got for you on the Seattle Seahawks here today, with more previews coming your way throughout the next few weeks right here on Sports by the Book. Make sure you are subscribed. Sports by the Book right here on YouTube. If you're catching us for the first time, we're live every weekday, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern. Getting you up to date on the best in sports betting that day, with takes from the bookmakers here at the South Point as well. Chris Andrews, Vinny Magliulo, Hall of Famers as well. So be on the lookout for that. Alex, always fun. We'll see you next time on the next preview here on Sports by the Book. She's Alex White. I'm Jeff Parles. We'll see you again next time. Sports by the Book, South Point Studio, as always, live from the South Point Hotel and Casino.